Disclaimer. The thoughts and opinions shared in this editorial are mine and mine alone. I do not intend to encourage or condone video game piracy. Please support the creators, especially independent game studios, by buying the official release from authorized retailers. In the immortal words of MC Double Def DP,
say you see a game you like and you really want to try it, don't copy that floppy, just go to the store and buy it.
It's March 27th, 2023, and Nintendo has officially closed their online storefronts for the 3DS and Wii U. Though these consoles have been rendered obsolete for quite a while, over 2,000 games will be forever out of reach for future generations and those who want to experience these classic titles. There has been something I've been wanting to say for a while now, and I think I can succinctly articulate it. I hate Nintendo. There, I said it. From keeping their first-party games prices evergreen, I'm looking at you, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, to launching their most anticipated games in an unacceptable state, we have been bamboozled time and time again by this beloved company. But what I hate Nintendo the most for was their takedown of MU Paradise, a once prestigious and popular website for video game emulation. The ethics of emulation is a complicated subject to discuss. Acquiring files to play games that you do not own is stealing, let's not get it twisted. However, emulation is what I consider to be the final vanguard of the most important issue plaguing media in general: preservation. Without the means to allow a piece of media to survive, we won't be able to re-experience those works we love or share them with others. History has shown us many times that we cannot trust video game developers to take care of their past titles, so it ultimately falls on the community to keep games alive. In order to have a meaningful discussion about video game preservation, I think it would be helpful to clearly define what emulation is. In its purest essence, video game emulation is the process of extracting the data content of a game cartridge or disc into a digital file called a ROM, read-only memory, then loading that file into a program that recreates the architecture of its appropriate video game console. The best analog I can compare this to is converting vinyl to an MP3 file and playing it through your phone's music app. Emulation has been present since the mid-1990s, as the increased processing power of personal home computers allowed users to create programs that could mimic physical hardware. The earliest and most popular emulation program around this time was SNEX 9X, an emulator for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Since then, there have been emulators released for every major commercially available system. Nintendo, Sega, Sony, Microsoft all have emulators based on their consoles. Hell, even MS-DOS and LucasArts' Scum Engine both ironically have emulators for modern computers. That's great, right? We have a means of storing and archiving our favorite games and never ever having to worry about physical media degrading or having to spend a prohibitive amount of money to play a rare game. So what's the catch? Well, it's illegal. Kinda. As I mentioned earlier, downloading complete retail copies of video games you did not buy is stealing. More specifically, it's piracy. However, game emulation is unique because it exists in a legal gray area filled with loopholes. I want to stress that I'm not a lawyer, so please don't take my word for legal counsel. Back in ye olden times when video games were primarily stored on physical media, it was perfectly legal to lend your copy of, let's say, Bomberman 64 to your friend for a couple of days, or in my case, 20 plus years. I don't think I've ever seen that game ever again. So what's so different about sharing a ROM of Bomberman 64? To my understanding, this is the loophole that circumvents a lot of legal disputes. So if video game emulation is illegal, again, kinda, why would someone do it? Is it even worth it? In my experience, yes. And here's why. Accessibility and archiving. Metropolis was a film first released in 1927. It is widely considered to be one of the most influential and groundbreaking films in modern cinematography, and one of the earliest examples of science fiction. PT was a playable teaser of Konami's then upcoming survival horror game, Silent Hills. The demo was originally released in 2014 as a digital-only download for Sony's PlayStation 4. The project was headed by Hideo Kojima, the David Lynch of Japanese video games, Guillermo del Toro of Pan's Labyrinth and Hellboy fame, and horror manga author Junji Ito. These two works could not be any more different, but they do share one major commonality. PT and Metropolis are both examples of lost media. Lost media is a term given to works that exist either in an incomplete state or do not have any surviving reproductions. In the case of Metropolis, the film's original runtime was cut from 210 minutes to 115 minutes after critics bemoaned it for being too long and convoluted. The 115-minute cut was then further rendered down to 91 minutes when it premiered in North America in 1936, removing all imagery of communism and religious depiction. It is the 91-minute version that was later archived by the British Film Institute, leaving the original theatrical release lost for over 70 years until a nearly complete cut was found in Argentina in 2008. PT was lost due to the cancellation of Silent Hills. Publisher Konami struggled financially during the 2010s and figured it would be more lucrative to develop pachinko machines rather than video games. Because of the project's cancellation, the listing for PT on Sony's online storefront was immediately taken down, and players who had previously installed it found that they could not launch it after updating their system. The only way one can play PT these days is if they own a PlayStation 4 with the game previously installed, and the console has not seen a system update in over 9 years. So yes, it's still possible to play PT if you're willing to pay eBay scalpers. When it comes to digital-only games, I'm conflicted. On one hand, I think that spending money on non-physical items is fucking stupid. But on the other hand, I understand that printing physical media is an expense that should be saved for significant releases. Limited Run Games, a company that I wholeheartedly admire, prints limited run physical releases for games and gives them the rockstar treatment they so deserve. So I ask now, what happens if I lose access to my PlayStation, Nintendo, or Steam account? Do I lose all those games that cost me as much as their physical versions would have cost me? And what if those companies close their online storefronts for their older consoles? We recently experienced that when Nintendo unceremoniously shut down the 3DS and Wii U eShops, and almost did when Sony was about to shut down the PlayStation 3 and PS Vita online storefronts, until their common sense took over. But let's put a pin on that, they're not quite off the hook yet. Furthermore, these are old, out-of-print games we're talking about here. Most of these titles, especially non-first-party developed games, are considered abandonware by their developers. These games don't make money for their creators anymore. There seems to be a bizarre pressure to buy original copies of games implied by these publishers and other players who drank the Kool-Aid. Though I myself am a casual video game collector, I hate this perversion of superiority and authenticity perpetuated by this mindset. God Hand, one of my favorite games of all time, will forever be out of my reach to own legitimately because it sells for a ridiculous amount of money secondhand. It makes me wonder if video game developers believe that the secondhand market benefits them somehow, because from what I can tell, that $250 I'd spent on God Hand just goes straight to the eBay seller's pocket. Besides the obvious financial hurdle, emulation also solves another accessibility issue many classic titles have: language and localization. The home console market was dominated by Japan in the 1980s and 1990s, and because either of a lack of interest or the presence of explicit content, there are so many games that are not officially localized for the Western market. One of emulation's greatest gifts is the possibility of ROM hacking, and therefore providing translation hacks. If it wasn't for ROM hacking pioneers like Aeon Genesis or DJAP, we wouldn't have been able to experience titles like Final Fantasy 2, 3, and 5 until they were officially localized 10 years after their initial release. Representing the work appropriately. Us Berserk fans have it the worst. All we want is a proper anime adaptation of our favorite dark fantasy manga that would honor the legacy of the late Dr. Kentaro Miura. Yet for 3.5 times now, we've been burned and left completely disappointed due to poor adaptation decisions made by the animation studios. Though, the soundtrack for each adaptation has been consistently stellar. At this rate, I believe that Berserk exists in the same realm of inadaptability as Frank Herbert's Dune, both having numerous film and television adaptations that do not represent their source material appropriately. I mean, come on. How can we expect anyone to recapture scenes like this in an animated format? The mishandling of Berserk's adaptations reminds me of the absolute betrayal that was Silent Hill 2's HD remaster in 2012's Silent Hill HD collection. Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite games ever. I can literally ramble on for hours how amazingly that game works on a narrative, mechanical, and subtextual level, but I'll show some restraint. Oh, fuck it. Silent Hill 2 is a goddamn masterpiece. Despite the graphical limitations during the time of its development, Team Silent somehow managed to turn those obstacles into aspects that bolstered the game's atmosphere. The reason Silent Hill 2's in-game environment was so foggy was to hide the game's short draw distance. The PlayStation 2 could not render 3D assets that were far in the player's field of view quickly enough. All the monster and character designs were crafted meticulously to relate to the game's narrative theme of sexual frustration. Hell, even the game psychologically analyzes the player based on the subtle list of criteria and tailors the game's ending according to those decisions they unknowingly made. To this day, Silent Hill 2 is regarded as one of the greatest narrative experiences ever created, and is a major proponent for the legitimacy of video games in the literary realm. So, how did Konami fuck up the remaster for one of their most beloved games? By trying to fix all the things Team Silent had to incorporate into the game's identity. The fog and visual noise filter that added to the game's eeriness were gone. The amateur voice actors who made the game feel uncanny were replaced with professionals who could not replicate the same authenticity and vulnerability in the latter's performance. And it was buggy. Oh god, it was buggy. Silent Hill 2's fanbase pushed back in their own way, knowing Konami could not be trusted to remaster the game faithfully. Enter Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition, a fan project that took the rare PC port of the original and modded it to provide the definitive Silent Hill 2 experience. Enhanced Edition has superseded the original PlayStation 2 release by reintroducing lost assets and an entire side scenario that was only available in the coveted Restless Dreams port on the original Xbox. This is the only way people should play Silent Hill 2 now, even with the upcoming remake on the way. Please, please, please don't screw this up again, Konami. Because modern computers are more astronomically powerful than older gaming consoles, the possibility to play older games, especially 3D games with higher fidelity, is only available through emulation. There are a few things I find more satisfying than seeing razor-sharp pixels or beautifully rendered 3D assets in a smooth frame rate. This simply is not possible on original consoles. Their closed hardware architecture cannot be upgraded, but the components of my PC regularly are. The major video game publishers do not care about the longevity of their classic titles. They may seem to try to preserve their catalog for future generations, but what they do is gaslight their player base at best. Nintendo, being so quick to take legal action to protect their IPs, cannot properly emulate their own games on their own consoles. The YouTuber Neural has a comprehensive series documenting Nintendo 64 emulation on the Switch. Sony, another company that still follows draconian business practices, ironically had PCSX Rearmed, a popular PlayStation emulator running on their PlayStation Classic mini console, and they still couldn't get Tekken 3 to run properly. These companies may use copyright to hoard their legal rights, but if they're clearly viewing their games as dried up cash cows, why should we respect that unspoken agreement between creator and experiencer? Sticking it to the man. If I haven't been clear enough in this editorial of how much I despise Nintendo, please allow me to indulge myself by dedicating this entire section to that. Nintendo saved the video game industry in the 1980s, but it's hindering the art form these days. That's a huge and loaded statement to make, but it's what I feel like in my heart of hearts. To me, Nintendo stands as the absolute antithesis of video game preservation, and that extends beyond their campaign against emulation. They've simply been making games that are impossible to emulate. Nintendos are innovators. I like to call them the Apple of video games. But because of the gimmicks exclusive to each of their consoles starting with the DS, there does not exist any way to experience those games outside of their hardware confines. Good luck trying to recreate the dual screen touch controls of the Nintendo DS and the 3DS. Extra good luck trying to recreate the motion controls of the Wii, and extra good luck trying to recreate the dual screen touch control and motion controls of the Wii U. Because of this, there are games that are imprisoned on those consoles. I know I'm making this a bigger problem than it is. The simple answer is to just buy the console secondhand and to download the games on the eShop. Wait, everything I've talked about in this editorial, preservation, adaptation, accessibility, Nintendo has shown that they've stood in opposition of. Even the music from their games, some being the most iconic orchestrations in any medium, have been subject to DMCA takedowns on YouTube. Yet those soundtracks are not officially available on any streaming platform. What sucks is that I have to buy Nintendo consoles in order to play some of their console exclusives. They are great games. However, I use every opportunity I have to stick a middle finger at them whenever I can and win whenever I can. When I originally bought my 3DS, the first thing I did was hack it so I can load retro game emulators on it. I have a bizarre habit of installing Doom on every electronic device I own. I was also able to load current titles on there so I can play them. I want to stress that I did end up buying all the 3DS games I liked, including 2 first-party games that meant a lot to me. When I bought my Nintendo Switch, I thought my outlook ought to change, and I bought a digital version of WarioWare Get It Together on launch day. My experience with this game reminded me that I should not change my outlook on video game emulation. I spent $80 on a game that I completed in 3 hours. A game I do not physically own. Fuck.